This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
This is inside BB. I'll be starting Skynet on this frequency in about 5 minutes. If you need to use the repeater, please do so before the net starts. This is inside BB.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
This is Inside BD, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. My name is Bill. I'll be your net control station for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, your comments, and your suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the # sign, break, and their call sign. This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from your net control. That would be me. Stations are mounted to identify the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using a W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. I'm going to interrupt the script. Tom, KE5ICX. I have a problem. Are you listening, Tom? A thump, so that may be you, Tom. Tom, when I go and look at the Skynet check-in responses, I see you and I, but nobody else. Did I somehow do something that froze that form? That's all I see, unless nobody else has filled it out yet.
Let me resend the link to you, okay?
Okay, resend it again. Maybe I'm using an old version. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We'll acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll continue to do that too over the air. And like I say, I'm looking at Echolink, so we can do it over Echolink also as a text. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. Hold on a second. The net is 90 minutes long, and it's structured into several parts. Very quickly, general announcements. Takes us on Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, recent astronomical discoveries, the discussion of the topic of the evening by the net control, what's up in the sky, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, and then if we have time, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages of the week, etc. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Hold on. Still trying to see. Well, Tom, I'm using a form that you sent me at 5:05 p.m. And when I open it up, all I see is you and I, who checked in several hours ago. Anyway, so let me go over now and let's start with short-time check-ins. If you can't stay here very long, please check in now using your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Well, maybe nobody's used the form because there's nobody here. I don't hear any short-time check-ins. Now let's try regular RF check-ins. If you'd like to check in on RF, we'll do Echolink later. If you'd like to check in on RF, please do so now. This is N5BB. This is Skynet, and please check in with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo 0, Foxtrot Echo Romeo, and Chris in Southeast Dallas.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas.
This is Kilo India 5, Zulu Oscar Echo, Tommy from Balch Springs.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is
Kilo, Golf 5, Whiskey, Victor, Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richards.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Kilo 5, Mike Charlie Delta, Cody in Dallas.
Let's pause there. Tom, I received your message, and that's working. I can see you're in my earlier check-in and everybody after that. I don't know what was going wrong, but that worked. Okay. I recognize on that round of check-ins KG5UFR, Jacob, K0SER, Chris, AG9SG, Antonio, W5GUS, Gus, KI5ZOE, Tommy, KF5ZBL Bill, KG5WVL James, AA5AH Robert, NT5TM Tony, and K5MCD Cody. Do we have any other RF check-ins to Skynet? If so, please come down. Okay. Looks like we got all those for now. On the form, I see the following people have checked in over the web. KE5ICX and myself, W5BLT Bill, K5MCD Cody, who also checked in on RF, WB5OZL Brenda, A5AH, who also checked in on RF, AG9SG, who also checked in on RF, N5OF, hello Clay, KF5JHA, Chaz, with Bob the Cat, riding shotgun, NT5TM, also on RF, KG5ZMG, hello Joe, NV5F, hi Virginia, and Cody, for some reason you got in there twice on the list, and then K5JDW, spaced out nicely, John, very good. Okay, do we have anybody on Echolink that would like to check in? Let me look at this. The only news stations I see Bob, AI5QE, Alpha India 5 Quebec Echo. Bob, would you like to check into Skynet on voice? If so, come now, or you can also put it into the Echolink text. AI5QE.
This is Alpha India 5 Quebec Echo checking in, and I'll be silent most of the night.
Okay, Bob, where are you located?
I am in uptown, beautiful Dallas.
We got you, Bob. Thank you for checking in. Okay. I believe I have everybody that's checked in, Echolink, RF, and over the web form. Does anybody else want to check into the net? If you haven't heard your call listed by me, please come now. This is N5BB looking for Echolink check-ins. All I heard was noise. Would that station like to try again? And nothing heard. Okay, over on Echolink, Chaz said that Bob the Cat thinks he's driving, and that Chaz is riding shotgun. Chaz, are you sure Bob's name isn't just an alias? Sounds like his name is Toonces. Yeah, that's right. I think you got Toonces the cat there if he thinks he's driving. Okay, old Saturday Night Live reference. Now, let's look at general announcements. Does anybody have any general announcements for the net? This could be relating to amateur radio, space or something of general interest to hams? If so, please come now with your call sign only.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, Tony, NT5TM, this is N5BB. Go ahead with your announcements of any type.
Well, this is a great net, and fortunately, it's not the last net of the night, or last night of the net. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion, 10:30, 10:35 or so, will focus on the movie Prospect from 2018. It may not have been uplifting, but it had great production values. I'd rather you listen to this net, but there is still time to watch it if you want to. Tomorrow, of course, will also be a day full of ham activities. The White Rock Lake Amateur Radio Club will be having its monthly brunch at 11 a.m. at VFW Post 6796 on Garland Road. That's behind the Sonic, not far from the Chick-fil-A, kind of here on the east side of the lake. You may have driven past it without seeing it, but it's in there. Look for the other businesses and you'll spot the VFW post. After the brunch, the White Rock Lake Amateur Radio Club Fox Hunt will take place within 1.5 miles of the shores of White Rock Lake. Please check out wa5wrl.org for more information. Technically, the Fox Hunt starts at 9 a.m., but most of us have brunch first. Then later in the day, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club will have a meeting on the air. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m., and the Dallas Races Training Net will be tomorrow at 8 p.m. Our Dallas Ham Fixins Net will meet this Monday at 7. Please try something new in the kitchen tomorrow, and then bring your results to the net on Monday. And finally, please don't forget that the August Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting will be this coming Tuesday. Our program will be on remote HF operating by Mike Garcia, AI5QK. The general meeting is at 7 p.m. in the third floor community room of the Dallas Medical Center on the northeast corner of Webb Chapel and LBJ. Check out W5FC.org, and click on the meetings link for more details. NT5TM, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Tony. Does anyone have any comments or questions about Tony's items? Or do you have any additional items of announcements for this net? This is N5BB. This is Skynet. Okay, I have one item from the world of science. Since this is Skynet, this is the news about something occurring up in the sky. A 515-mile-long lightning megaflash sets new world record. So this megaflash was in October of 2017. It occurred between East Texas and near Kansas City, about 515 miles long. The longest one that's been certified. How do they determine the details of this flash? Well, first, there's a number of stations, or RF receiving stations set up, which triangulate lightning flashes by listening to the time delay of the RF signal, the static signal produced when the lightning flash occurs. And that's one way. The other way is satellites. They look at satellite images of these things. And it took them a long time to wade through all their records, but this is the longest one yet, 515 miles. Turns out that the next to longest one was also in Texas, and it was 477 miles during a storm in 2020. So we have a lot of lightning flashes down here and a lot of long ones due to lightning traveling horizontally through clouds for very long distances. If you've never witnessed this, it's amazing. One time when I was on a business trip up in Oklahoma, driving, in the late evening. It was just twilight. There's a little bit of light coming through the clouds. I saw this lightning going all over the visible sky, and it happened multiple times. It was very amazing. It was huge. Okay, one more try. Do we have any other news items of any type before we move forward with the net? This is N5B. And already additional check-ins. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Okay, there's no new web form or Echolink check-ins. I didn't hear any on RF. So next we have, there are several satellite nets that people can listen to every week, sponsored by different AMSAT groups. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., there's a national AMSAT net. You can do that by going to Echolink, looking for the group called Asterisk, AMSAT asterisk. There's also a live audio link you can hear at www.amsatnet.com. That net originates in Houston. There's 2 local nets on most Tuesday evenings. There's the AMSAT East net, which meets on this repeater, 146.88, with a 110.9 PL tone, on Tuesday evenings. However, it will not meet this coming Tuesday because we have a club meeting. But on other Tuesdays, we'll have that net at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Tom in 5HP is normally the net control. Anybody's welcome to check in and discuss or hear about amateur satellites and related topics. Then, on Wednesday, every week, there is a West AMSAT net, which meets at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. So, those are the 2 local nets, and I mentioned the Echolink one. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. You can check the W5FC.org website for details. The first week of the net, it's the Ham Fixings Cooking Net. There's other things that occur later Mondays in the month. Saturdays are the Night of Nets. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. We keep the airways humming until midnight. Here's the lineup. We have TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m. This is a technical net. You can go in and talk about technical things, ask questions, give comments. It could be about software. It could be about computer hardware. It could be about antennas. It could be about propagation. It could be about how a contest is run. Anything that's kind of technical about amateur radio. Come in and talk to us. 7 to 8 p.m. every Saturday evening. We also have news on that net, a lot of news. Of interest, amateur radios, I should say, amateur radio operators. And then at 9 p.m. every Saturday evening, we have this net, Skynet, from 9 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. We talk about astronomy, space, and space exploration. We have news, information, satellite passes, Constellation of the Week, all kinds of technical and non-so-technical things about what goes on above our heads. There's a different net control every week. Then after Skynet, we have the Afterglow moving net. It's from 10:30 to midnight every Saturday evening. Tonight we will be talking about the 2018 science fiction movie Prospect, which I think is interesting and not horrible. Tom, K5ICX, would you like to read to us your extremely accurate description of Prospect, the movie? This is in 5BB.
Why, thank you, Bill. I'll be happy to do that. This is KE5ICX. Damon was teaching his kid to drive, and unlike most fathers, driving involves landing an interplanetary spaceship. The vehicle screeched through the atmosphere as his daughter rode the massive spacecraft down to the surface with the parking brake still engaged. Upon landing, the locals came running to the landing site. There was a guy named Ezra and his friend. Not only took their stuff, but also seized driving permit and ripped it up. The townspeople expressed gratitude, even though Ezra didn't have a most noble of motives. Join us for the low budget but critically positive reviewed film Prosper 2018 tonight at 10:30. And there is a hot link on the W5FC website if you want to do a quick scan during this net. But of course, you should be paying attention to this net too. Back to you, Bill. KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom. Well, the budget was, I think, over $3 million, so it wasn't completely insignificant, but nothing like the budget for big movies. I noticed if you go and look at IMDb and look at the details about the movie, there's a whole pile of people listed as some kind of producer. Executive producer, associate executive producer, visiting producer, whatever. So I'm guessing that those are people that donate a little bit of money and things and got their name in as a producer of some type. Wow, would they have so many producers? Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. You can still see the movie if you'd like to. If you'd rather watch the movie rather than listening to Skynet, or if you're very smart and you can do both at the same time, you can, or maybe you could watch it with the volume off. You can do that. Look at the DARC website, W5SC.org. You'll find a link right up in the hot news area, and you can go and watch the movie. So anyway, you can keep up with all Dallas Amateur Radio Club events, nets, and activities going to W5SC.org. Okay, now, let me double check one more time, but I don't see anybody else. Oh, Tom says it was Kickstarter. Oh, maybe they were the people that contributed over $100 on Kickstarter or something. Okay. Now, don't see any other check-ins, but we'll try. Any other check-ins to Skynet? Come now, please.
Kilo 9 Alpha Hotel Oscar.
In on AHO, although I have the inside track and know who you are, for everybody's benefit, why don't you tell us your name and your location?
Good evening. The name is Brian, and I'm in Terrell, Texas, K9AHO.
Yes, Brian's way over in Terrell, and he's probably the strongest station in the net. I don't know how he does it. Very good, Brian. Thank you. Okay, next, it's time for Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. That's right, Bill the Cat. Excuse me, it's Bob the Cat. Wake Up Chaz. That's right. Go and climb up his back or something. It's time for the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Take it away, Chaz, KH5JHA and 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Bob likes to oftentimes lay beside the computer, which is also next to the radio, and so I get concerned at that point. He's actually out of the room somewhere. Now I'm concerned. He'll pounce on me anytime. All right. Oh, Slide Master, Slide 1. On August the 22nd is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. That's on Campbell Road. And there's also going to be a Zoom component. We don't know the feature speaker and the topic. Why? They haven't been chosen yet. Hey, if you'd like to do that, contact me. I'll be glad to forward your name on to our Vice President, Nathan. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas hosts Saturday night public observing sessions. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the first Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, stargazing is held at Fairview. I think it was canceled due to the clouds, so I'm not going to ask for any radio contacts from there because I'm pretty sure they're not there. We have several ham radio operators that actually operate that, but they get very busy with observing with sometimes over 100 people. So let me see. You can check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5, JJ, back to our net control. Oh, Bob is somewhere on the prowl.
Very good. Thank you, Chaz. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the Texas Astronomical Society? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Now I'm going to describe the National Space Society with events and activities. I happen to be the Vice President and Membership Director of the National Space Society, North Texas chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. Our last event was Saturday, July the 19th, when the North Texas chapter participated in Moon Day event at the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas. We talked about that last week. Excuse me, let me drink something. Be right back. Okay. The National Space Society North Texas chapter meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The next chapter meeting will be Sunday afternoon, August 10th. That's a week from tomorrow. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. Contact Bill, N5BB, if you'd like to attend. On the last Friday evening of each month, always the last Friday, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. Location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. This is about a block east of MacArthur in North Irving on the south frontage road of Highway 183. It's a few miles west of I-35, between I-35 and the north end of DFW Airport. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 11 people, I think it was 11, it's either 10 or 11, attended the July 25th Space Rendezvous event last week. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday evening, August the 29th. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byron.net. That's all. Do we have any questions, comments, or additional check-ins? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Okay, don't see anybody new on Echolink or the web forum. Next, it's time for Brenda. We have recent astronomical discoveries. Tell us what's going on, Brenda, about moon dust and other things. WB50ZL, this is N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. This is WB50ZL. This is an article from Science Daily entitled Trapped by Moon Dust, the Physics Error That Fooled NASA for Years. When a multi-million-dollar extraterrestrial vehicle gets stuck in soft sand or gravel, as did the Mars rover Spirit in 2009, Earth-based engineers take over like a virtual tow truck, issuing a series of commands that move its wheels or reverse its course in a delicate, time-consuming effort to free it and continue its exploratory mission. While Spirit will remain permanently stuck in the future, better terrain testing right here on terra firma could help avert these celestial crises. Using computer simulations, University of Wisconsin-Madison mechanical engineers have uncovered a flaw in how rovers are tested on Earth. That error leads to overly optimistic conclusions about how rovers will behave once they're deployed on extraterrestrial missions. An important element in preparing for these missions is an accurate understanding of how a rover will traverse extraterrestrial surfaces in low gravity to prevent it from getting stuck in soft terrain or rocky areas. On the Moon, the gravitational pull is 6 times weaker than on Earth. For decades, researchers testing rovers have accounted for that difference in gravity by creating a prototype that is a sixth the mass of the actual rover. They test these lightweight rovers in deserts, observing how it moves across sand to gain insights into how it would perform on the Moon. It turns out, however, that this standard testing approach overlooked a seemingly inconsequential detail: the pull of Earth's gravity on the desert sand. Let me reset. Through simulation, Dan Negrut, a professor of mechanical engineering at UW-Madison, and his collaborators determined that Earth's gravity pulls down on sand much more strongly than the gravity of Mars or Moon does. On Earth, sand is much more rigid and supportive, reducing the likelihood it will shift under a vehicle's wheels, but the Moon's surface is fluffier and therefore shifts more easily, meaning rovers have less traction, which can hinder their mobility. In retrospect, the idea is simple. We need to consider not only the gravitational pull on the rover, but also the effect of gravity on the sand to get a better picture of how the rover will perform on the Moon, Negrut says. Our findings underscore the value of using physics-based simulation to analyze rover mobility on granular soil. The researchers' discovery resulted from their work on a NASA-funded project to simulate the Viper rover, which had been planned for a lunar mission. The team leveraged Project Chrono, an open-source physics simulation engine developed at UW-Madison in collaboration with scientists from Italy. This software allows researchers to quickly and accurately model complex mechanical systems like full-size rovers operating on squishy sand or soil surfaces. While simulating the Viper rover, they noticed discrepancies between the Earth-based test results and their simulations of the rover's mobility on the Moon. Digging deeper with Chrono, simulations revealed the testing flaw. The benefits of this research also extend well beyond NASA and space travel. For applications on Earth, Chrono has been used by hundreds of organizations to better understand complex mechanical systems, from precision mechanical watches to U.S. Army trucks and tanks operating in off-road conditions. It's rewarding that our research is highly relevant in helping to solve many real-world engineering challenges, Negrut says. I'm proud of Sorry, it's very difficult. Where was I? It's very unusual in academia to produce a software product at this level. There are certain types of applications relevant to NASA and planetary exploration where a simulator can solve problems that no other tool can solve, including simulators from huge tech companies, and that's exciting. Since Chrono is open source, Negrut and his team are focusing on continually innovating and enhancing the software to stay relevant. Back to Nat. This is WB5OZL.
Very good. Thank you, Brenda. This is Skynet, and this is N5BB Net Control. Do we have any other stations that would like to check into the net? If so, please come down. Okay, now it's time for the discussion topic of the evening by Net Control. That would be me. Tonight I'm going to talk about the physics of spinning black holes explained. Scientists are uncovering how spinning black holes launch jets, warp space-time, and shape the cosmos. This is by Phil Plait, who for many years did the has written astronomy columns in various places. He's now writing for Scientific American, so this came from Scientific American. One of the most notable aspects about our planet, if observed from the outside, is that it spins. Earth's spin defines our days, sending a fundamental rhythm of life on our world. The moon spins too. So do the planets and all their moons. The sun spins as well, as do all stars. Even galaxies spin. The Milky Way rotates as stars swing around its center in multi-million-year orbits. It seems obvious then that, cosmically speaking, everything spins. But this basic fact becomes downright bizarre in the head-spinning case of black holes. Spin, it turns out, is one of the most important characteristics for these gravitational monsters. It has wide-ranging impact, from how they feast on matter to the ways they can shape the very structure of galaxies. Angular momentum is the core concept to understand when pondering spinning black holes. This is just like the momentum you're familiar with from your everyday life, what we call linear momentum, but for a spinning object. It's easiest to think about in terms of inertia. That is, how hard it is to stop an object from spinning. The faster something is spinning, and the more massive something is, the more inertia it has, and the harder its spinning is to stop. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Angular momentum is a special characteristic of an object in that it's conserved. Absent some external force, something rotating on its own will continue to rotate forever. If you try to slow it down or speed it up by, say, grabbing it, some of its angular momentum will be transferred to you or from you to it. So the combined total angular momentum between you and it doesn't change. An object's angular momentum depends on its spin rate, its mass, and most importantly for our discussion, its size. Ice skaters provide a classic example. They throw their arms wide to start a spin. Then, when they bring their arms in close to their body, their spin rate dizzyingly skyrockets. That's how angular momentum is conserved. The size decreases, so the spin rate increases. The same is true for stars, which are balanced on the cusp between exploding outwards because of their radiance and collapsing inward on account of their internal gravity. When a high-mass star runs out of fuel, this balance is broken, and the core collapses, generating a gigantic explosion, a supernova, that blasts away the outer layers of the star. As the core shrinks down, it also spins up. And if its mass is more than about 3 times the sun's, the core, which was formerly tens of thousands of kilometers wide, will become a black hole a mere 10 kilometers or so in diameter. This dramatic downsizing can boost the black hole's spin by a factor of several million over its sedate stellar progenitor, so it spins hundreds of times per second. And because angular momentum is conserved, even though almost everything else about the star is annihilated in the black hole's birth, the spin sticks around. In fact, only 3 factors can be used to define a black hole: its mass, its angular momentum, and its electric charge. In reality, that charge will be neutral or very close to it. So in practical terms, the first 2 factors are key. Because of this, we expect that most of all black holes will be spinning very fast. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet in progress. It's an odd concept because black holes don't have a physical surface that can spin. But given that angular momentum can't be destroyed, black holes must retain it when they form. And this must be true for black holes born from stars, as well as the supermassive black holes we see in the centers of big galaxies, too, even though we don't fully understand how these giants form. And remarkably, in some cases, we can actually measure these colossal cosmic spins. The trick is to realize that while a black hole's angular momentum can't simply disappear, it can certainly grow. Material falling into a black hole adds its angular momentum to the system, increasing the black hole spin. There's a theoretical limit to how fast a black hole can spin. It's a complicated mathematical concept, but effectively that limit is when the black hole is rotating at the speed of light. It's possible, though difficult, to measure the spin of a black hole by the way light is emitted from material just before it falls in. And for example, the nearby galaxy NGC 1365 has a central supermassive black hole that has been measured to be spinning at very nearly this limit. So it's spinning at very close to the speed of light at its edge. But of course it gets weirder. A bizarre aspect of Einstein's general relativity, theory of relativity, is that space-time can act like a fabric, a substance in which masses are embedded. Einstein predicted that as massive objects rotate, they drag space-time around them, which is called the Lindsay-Thirring effect. or more commonly, frame dragging. The effect is strongest very close to the black hole's event horizon, its point of no return, and gets weaker with distance. It's like sticking a hand mixer into a big bowl of honey. The honey nearby will rotate along with the mixer, but it is so viscous that a few centimeters out, it'll hardly move at all. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. This relativistic frame dragging affects material just outside the black hole profoundly. Material close to the black hole gets dragged along with the space around it, accelerating by stealing energy from the black hole's spin. This moving material generates a strong magnetic field powered by the rotation. As the matter orbits the black hole, the magnetic field lines get wound up, creating twin vortices like tornadoes. These are so powerful they can draw matter away from the black hole and accelerate it away at nearly the speed of light. Astronomers call these beam jets, and with supermassive black holes, they can be hundreds of thousands of light years long. So we're talking about something out near the poles of the black hole. As it's spinning, the two poles of the black hole, along the axis of the black hole, these jets will be coming out from each end of the axis, where the axis is exiting the black hole. Astronomers still aren't sure how supermassive black holes form. Do they grow huge from material falling in from the still forming host galaxy? Or do many smaller black holes form in the center and merge to create a single huge one? The spin of the resulting black hole may tell us the answer. If it forms from a disk of infalling material, the spin will be near the limit. But it's formed from other black holes moving in random directions that merge. Their spins can cancel out, leaving a final black hole with lower spin. It's not quite that simple, of course, but it may be possible in principle to observe young supermassive black holes with something like the James Webb Space Telescope to see if the spin can be measured and one of the formation methods supported or discounted. This is N5BD, and this is Skynet by the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. We do know the supermassive black hole forms and grows along with its host galaxy. As protogalactic gas from a huge cloud collapses and coalesces into stars, the black hole in its center is already huge and spinning rapidly. If it forms jets, these plow through the matter falling in from the galaxy itself, slamming into this material and even reversing its course, blasting it away. This can quench star formation, limiting how many stars the galaxy has. In this way, the spin of a black hole directly affects the size and structure of the galaxy around it. No matter how you look at them, black holes are bizarre. The fact that they exist and we can understand them at all is, to me, exciting and profound. We live in a galaxy with a supermassive black hole at its center, and we may owe our existence to it. That alone is enough to try to understand them. End of article. Does anybody have any questions or comments about tonight's presentation? Or do we have any check-ins? This is N5BD, and this is Skynet.
This is Whiskey
Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power, and much gratitude for what you've taught us about angular momentum.
Kilo 9 Alpha Hotel Oscar.
Okay, I recognize Ted, WB4MFI, checking in. Thank you very much, Ted. Brian, Keenan AHO, what's your comment or question?
Yes, thank you. A very fascinating article. I appreciate you reading it. I was wondering if those jets that you were describing are related in any way to Hawking radiation, which I understand is a way that black holes can actually evaporate, and despite the fact they have such powerful gravitational field. K9AHO.
To my understanding, there's no direct correlation between these things. The jets are due to, as we mentioned, this huge twisting magnetic field that can cause these huge jets to come out along the axis, both directions. And that doesn't have anything to do with Hawking radiation. Does anybody else have any comments about Hawking radiation, which I don't believe is well understood, and I think mostly involves something at ages like the end of the universe, many, 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 many billions of years in the future. Anybody have any more comments about Hawking radiation? This is Inside BB. Yeah, I think Hawking radiation is one of those theoretical concepts that would occur over incredibly long periods of time, and that we would probably not really see in an obvious way right now, especially not with these jets that come out. Okay, any other comments, questions, or check-ins? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Okay. Next, it's time for Chaz again. Bob, wake up, Chaz. Chaz, what's up? KF5JHA, this is N5BB.
Bob doesn't like the talking box, so he's in a different room right now. He'll probably come and disturb me in the middle of this. Thank you, Bill. Slide Master, slide number 2. That would be our Slide Master over here on Echolink. Tom is our Slide Master. He's been the Slide Master for a long time. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what's gone on astronomically over the past couple of weeks and what's going to take place over the next couple of weeks and sometimes beyond. Slide number 3, please. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. I've been talking about it for over a year. It is currently at a brightness of 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova more than a year ago. New predictions are November the 10th of this year, 2025, or June 25th of the year 2026. Well, we'll see. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. The image, if you're watching the video version, you can go to the video version by going to W5FC.org and look for the link for the YouTube video version. This image is taken from Tuesday, July the 29th, from spaceweather.com, of the sun. Large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can use them. That must have been a sunspot. Oh, wait. You can use your solar eclipse glasses sometimes to see the sunspots without any other optical aid. The sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. I've talked about the solar cycle about 3 or 4 months ago on Skynet. Slide master, slide number 5. First quarter moon was on August the 1st. Oh, that was yesterday. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On August the 9th, the moon will be full. On August the 14th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 369,288 kilometers. Third quarter moon is on August the 16th. New moon is on August 23rd. On August 29th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,548 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 6, please. On August the 3rd, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and the bright star Antares, that's the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpius, in the southern evening sky. Slide master, slide number 7. On August the 11th and 12th, that's the peak of a Perseid meteor shower, really famous. You could see up to 100 meteors per hour. Now, most of the time you'll see the most meteors the hour just before dawn. Now, to get detailed information about how to observe meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide master, slide number 8, please. On the early morning of August the 12th, there's a conjunction of the moon, the planet Saturn, and the planet Neptune. Now, you'll need a telescope to see Neptune. Can't see with even binoculars. You'll need a telescope to see Neptune. Slide master, slide number 9. Also on the early morning of August the 12th, in the opposite side of the sky in the east-northeastern sky, is the close conjunction of Jupiter and Venus. They're going to be about 1 degree apart from each other. Should be a really interesting thing. The two brightest objects other than the sun and the moon together in the sky. Wow. Slide master, slide number 10. Beginning on the morning of August the 16th, there's a daytime occultation of the Pleiades. You'll need a moderate-sized telescope to observe this because it's a daytime occultation. You can remember a couple of weeks ago I showed you pictures of the occultation of the Pleiades in the early morning sky before sunup. That was really great. But binoculars or a telescope was needed for that. You'll need a telescope for this August 16th daytime occultation of the Pleiades. Slide master, slide number 11. On August the 19th, there's a conjunction of the planet Mercury and M44. M44 is also known as the Beehive Star Cluster in the east-northeastern morning sky. Slide master, slide number 12. And on August the 20th, the moon, Venus, and the bright star Pollux are in conjunction in the east-northeastern morning sky. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 13. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Hearing nothing, I guess we'll get to slide number 14. So as the moon will wane next week, so do these words through the segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually, I'll probably be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ Chaz. This is Skynet transmitting on the W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Now back to our net control. Bill, it's yours.
Very good. This is Inside BB. By the way, concerning Brian's question earlier, I'm just reading up on this, and small black holes radiate Hawking radiation much faster than large black holes. And so, in order for the temperature of the black hole, the effective temperature, the black body temperature, to be higher than the black body radiation in the universe, that's how high it has to be, which is about 2.7 degrees Kelvin, very cold. It has to be warmer than that for it to actually radiate. And that implies that the mass of the black hole has to be less than about 8/10 of the mass of the Earth. And any black hole that could dissipate, that means cannot be one created by stellar collapse. Only primordial black holes from the early universe could be created by the beginning of the universe, could be small enough to be radiating. And so far, no black hole radiation has ever been detected. It's way too... if you're close to a really small black hole, you might be able to do it. Okay, that's all I got for that. Next, do we have any questions, comments, or check-ins? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet.
This is Alpha India 5 Quebec Echo on whatever you call it, Link. You probably talked about it, and I probably missed it, but did you talk about, I think it's called Schwarzschild black holes that don't rotate at all? And I just thought that's an interesting concept. AI5QE, back to net.
Hi, Bob. No, did not, but I think that's a theoretical concept. To my knowledge, no non-rotating black holes have ever been discovered. I don't think any that have been shown to not be rotating have been discovered. I guess some things are theoretically possible, but not practically found, because as I mentioned earlier, when stars collapse, they go through neutron stars, and they collapse into black holes. There's usually a very large amount of angular momentum due to the star's rotation, and so it gets transferred into the black hole. Okay, now let's move ahead with Gus. Gus, can you tell us about space exploration and space history? W5GUS, this is N5BB. Take it away, Gus.
Okay, thank you, Bill. W5GUS here. Of course I can. First, it's a pretty interesting story about an asteroid, and some astronomers at the University of Western Ontario have analyzed what might happen if the 60-meter wide asteroid called 2024 YR hits the moon. In a new paper, they report that the impact would release energy equivalent to 6.5 megatons of TNT, blasting out a kilometer-wide crater and ejecting up to 100 million kilograms of lunar debris. They found that up to 10% of the lunar ejecta could reach Earth within days. The resulting meteor shower would be eye-catching, with meteor rates orders of magnitudes above the usual background rates. Earth's upper atmosphere would be peppered by lunar material arriving at relatively low speeds, which is about 2 to 3 kilometers a second. That's much slower than the typical 20-plus kilometers a second of interplanetary meteoroids. As a result, these meteors would appear slower, dimmer, and longer lasting than usual. still they could be visible to the naked eye and quite numerous. And the best part about it is nearly every visible meteor in the shower would be a piece of the moon. The authors estimate a 4% chance of impact. That's pretty small, but significant. The odds will be updated in 2028 when asteroid 2024 YR4 emerges from the glare of the sun and becomes observable again. If it's on target, the asteroid could deliver the largest lunar impact that's happened in approximately 5,000 years. They're predicting that it should hit the moon 2024 YR4 is predicted to hit the moon in a few years, in December of 2032. So we've got some time to study it and think about it. Okay, and next is something about Betelgeuse. Century-old hypothesis that Betelgeuse, which is the 10th brightest star in our night sky, is orbited by a very close companion star, and that was proved true by a team of astrophysicists at NASA Ames Rock Research Center in California. Fluctuations in the brightness and measured velocity of Betelgeuse, which is the closest red supergiant star to Earth, had long presented clues that it might have a partner, but the bigger star's intense glow made direct observation of the partner any fainter neighbors nearly impossible. So 2 recent studies by other teams of astronomers reignited the companion star hypothesis by using more than 100 years of Betelgeuse observations to provide predictions of the companion's location and brightness to Betelgeuse. If the smaller star did exist, the location predictions suggested that scientists had a window of just a few months to observe the companion star at its widest separation from Betelgeuse, as it orbited near the visible edge of the supergiant. After that, they'd have to wait another 3 years for it to orbit to the other side of Betelgeuse and again leave the overpowering glow of its larger companion. Searches for the companion were initially made using space-based telescopes because observing through Earth's atmosphere can blur images of astronomical objects, but these efforts did not detect the companion. So the researchers recognized the ground-based telescope in Hawaii, which is one of the largest in the world, paired with a special high-resolution camera built by NASA, had the potential to directly observe the close companion to Betelgeuse, despite the atmospheric blurring. The advanced imaging camera let them obtain many thousands of short exposures to measure the atmospheric interference in their data and remove it with the detailed image processing provided in an image of Betelgeuse and its companion. So the team detected the very faint companion star right where it was predicted to be, orbiting very close to the outer edge of Betelgeuse. Okay, now moving on to space-related birthdays. Just not too many this past week, the week of July 27th through August 2nd. Daniel Burbank, July 27th, 1961. He was on STS-106, STS-115. And Robert Becklinkin, July 28th, 1970, he was born. STS-123, STS-130, SpaceX. Okay. Okay, and then July 28, 1971, Scott E. Parazinski was born. He was on STS-66, STS-86, STS-95, and STS-100. July 30th, 1954, Gregory C. Johnson was on STS-125. Okay, and then August the 1st, 1946, Richard Covey was born. Let's see, he was on STS-51, STS-26, STS-38, and STS-61. And that's it for birthdays, so let's move on to This Week in Space History. Okay, I guess this is could be classified as space history. August the 1st, 1774, oxygen was discovered by Joseph Priestley. He called it phylogisticated air, and he later discovered sulfur dioxide, which he named vitriolic acid air. All right, now we'll go on to real space history here. Apollo 15, which was went from July 26th to August the 7th in 1971, was the 9th crewed mission in the United States Apollo program and the 4th to land on the moon. It was the first mission with first J mission with a longer stay on the moon and a greater focus on science than earlier landings. Apollo 15 saw the first use of the lunar roving vehicle. The mission began on July 26th and ended August 7th, with the lunar surface exploration taking place between July 30th and August 2nd. Commander David Scott and Lunar Module pilot James Irwin landed near Hadley Rill and explored the local area using the rover, allowing them to travel further from the lunar module than had been possible on previous missions. They spent 18 and a half hours on the moon's surface on 4 extravehicular activities and collected 170 pounds of surface material. And during the return trip, Command Module pilot Al Worden performed the first spacewalk in deep space. The Apollo 15 mission splashed down safely on August the 7th, despite the loss of one of its 3 parachutes. And that's it for this week's edition. So we'll go back to net control, W5GUS. Go ahead, Bill.
Very good. Gus, you timed it just right. Just got back with after refilling my glass of iced tea. Okay, do we have any additional check-ins, comments, or questions? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Okay, I think somebody may have been trying to check in there. Was the station trying to check in that we heard no audio? Please try again. Nothing heard. Now it's time for Chaz again. Chaz, tell us about Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week and the jokes that come along with it. KF5JHA and 5BB.
The awesome jokes, of course. This is KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 15. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T, Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012, to till May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Sagittarius the Centaur. Sagittarius is a mythological creature that is half human and half horse. Sagittarius is an archer as well. Now, most people see Sagittarius, it looks like a teapot. The amazing thing is that the teapot is hot. How do I know? You can see steam coming out of the spout and spanning the entire sky. The steam is the Milky Way. Slide Master, slide number 16, one of the most important parts of Skynet, the jokes of the week. All right, if you don't know the rules of this, if you're on Echolink, you can sit there and type in comments about my jokes. I can't hear you booing or hissing or clapping your hands or cheering, so I don't know. All right, did you hear about the man who was hospitalized with 6 plastic horses inside of him? The doctor described his condition as stable. Remember, this is Sagittarius, half human, half horse. I'm using all sorts of horse jokes. What did the horse say when it fell? I've fallen and I can't giddy up. All right, that's a joke about a commercial a long time ago. How do you know a horse is sick? Well, you know, he's a pony. You know, a little horse. How do you make a small fortune on horse racing? This is an old one. You start with a large fortune. What side of the horse has the most hair? The outside. A horse walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey!" And the horse says, "Buddy, you read my mind." Slide Master, slide number 17. Usually I like to talk about a few stars in the constellation of the week, but not this week. Sagittarius happens to be in the direction of the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Bill just talked about that. Yep. Oh, now Bob the cat is getting involved. He's meowing in the background. At the center of the Milky Way is a black hole. We talked about that, with a mass of more than 1 million suns. The constellation of Sagittarius is full of globular clusters, open clusters, nebulas, and so much more. I want to talk about one double star, the Nuki. It's located in the handle of the teapot. Primary star is about 227 light years away from us and shines at second magnitude. The spectroscopic secondary star is a binary as well, but the close by 9th magnitude star that is used by astronomical students at the college. We observe this as a visual binary. Wow. Nifty. Okay. Slide Master, slide number 18. M8. On Inside BP says boo and hiss about one joke. I don't know which one he booed and hissed about. I don't know. M8 is on Charles Messier's object list number 8, the famous Lagoon Nebula, easily visible to the naked eye from dark sky sites. M8 is obviously a nebula, and even the smallest instruments, binoculars, and even finder scopes. The associated open cluster NGC 6530 is easily seen in small telescopes as well. The nebulosity appears weakest around the cluster. Slide Master, slide number 19. M20 is famous because it's on Star Trek. M20 is the Trifid Nebula. What makes the object so famous is it's one of the pictures on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise on the original Star Trek TV series. Well, at one time they had it there. You can see the nebulosity, both the brighter and red emission nebula. The fainter blue one in the nebula is hard to see. Even in the dark dust lands are streaked across the sky of the emission nebula and the moderate telescopes, but the blue part is hard. With averted vision, you can just barely start to see some of the dark lanes. Dave Hutchinson so aptly points out in the TASS Spectrum newsletter article that M20 contains all three types of nebula: emission nebula, reflection nebula, and a dark nebula. Slide master, slide number 20. Busy object number 17, or the Swan or Omega Nebula. This nebula's swan appearance is easy to make out, as one happy and thrilled observer on the upper field of the recent Texas Star Party shouted out to all to hear, "It really does look like a swan." The brightest part of the nebula makes a shape much like a check mark, maybe. The name Omega Nebula comes from the curved portion of the nebula that forms the swan's neck and head. Some observers have likened this to the curved shape of the Greek letter Omega. Slide master, slide number 21. M22 is a beautiful globular cluster. It's what happens if you want to take a look at a globular cluster. This is the one you look at. It resolves into dozens of stars easily at only 41 power in a telescope. At high power, it is a visual treat with the core almost totally resolved. Many bright individual stars. M22 is one of the showpiece globular clusters along with M13, M5, 47 Tucani, and the Omega Centauri. Oh, Omega Centauri was really beautiful in April when I was there at the Texas Star Party. There's so many globular clusters that could be talked about, like M54, M70, M69, M28, M55, M75, and many more. I'm afraid that would take another 20 minutes. We don't have that much time left on Skynet. Slide master, slide number 22. One more object. NGC 6818. NGC 6818, or the Little Gem Nebula, is a nice planetary nebula. Unlike many planetary nebulas that look like stars at low power, this little gem is fairly obvious. At high power, it is round and gray and a hint of some faint outer wisp. It is large enough and bright enough that it has earned its place in the Astronomical League Urban Observing Club. In other words, you can see it from inside the city. And this is KF5, JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 23. Now, there are a lot more Astronomical League Observing Program objects in the constellation of Sagittarius the Centaur. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 74 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from the Astronomical League in about a year. Slide master, slide number 24, and that is Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Sagittarius the Centaur. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for more information. Well, next week we'll take a look at Lyra, the harp. And this is KF5JJ saying goodnight, 73. And Bob the Cat still hasn't shown up. He's in a different room. Back to our net control. Bill, it's yours.
Okay, very good, Chaz. This is Inside BB, and this is Skynet. We're running out of time for the visible satellite passages, etc. So I think we may have to skip those. I would like to point out to everybody that for viewing the International Space Station, ISS, NASA used to have a website, a Spot the Station website, which you could sign up for an automatic email, and you would get emails when there were going to be ISS passes. That was discontinued a few weeks ago in June, or maybe July. So now there's a better way of doing this on a mobile phone, either Apple, iOS, or Android. You download the Spot the Station app. That's right, Spot the Station. And that free app will give you local notifications on your device. It's also got a countdown timer. It's got a lot of other background information about the ISS. It's a really cool tool. So if you haven't done it, go over and from the store to your device, download Spot the Station, and you will find from NASA.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
So now, Tom, are there any really hot launches you want to describe before we shut the net? This is in 5BB.
There is August 4th, Falcon 9 Starlink 10-30 launch. That will be at SOC 40 at Cape Canaveral. That'll be mini satellites, version 2 going into low Earth orbit. First stage booster launching for the 21st time will target a landing on a drone ship. Just read the instructions, which will be positioned out in the Atlantic Ocean. And you can get all that information at spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. Back to you, Bill.
Well, thank you, Tom. There was just a Falcon 9 launch to the International Space Station with astronauts, so that just occurred successfully. And for to answer Chaz's question, my comment earlier, boo hiss, lame joke, the reason I sent that was you had talked about the horse having a giddy-up problem. It couldn't get up anymore. That's why I said it was a lame joke. The horse couldn't giddy up. Get it? Okay. Tonight we had 23 people. I've checked, and I think that's correct, that checked into the net. I want to thank everybody for participating this evening in Skynet. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other Dallas Amateur Radio Club nets. If you'd like to try your hand, contact a net control station or send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can find topics about everything we talked about on Facebook and X, and our audio and video streams, video archives, and all kinds of things by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of the net and look at the Skynet links. Until next Saturday night, this is in 5BB. Bill, I'll be closing the net at 10:32 p.m. Returning the repeater to normal amateur use for a few minutes before the Afterglow net. 73, everybody, enjoy the evenings covering the universe. This is N5BB closing Skynet, turning it over to KE5ICX for Afterglow.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for doing the net this evening. We'll be back in 5 minutes to discuss tonight's movie, 2018's Prospect, a science fiction film starring Pedro Pascal and Sophie Thatcher. So back in 5, KE5 ICX. All right, well, it's time to get started with the Afterglow Movie Net, always at 10:30 every Saturday night, going to around midnight or so. So hopefully you had a nap and you have an opportunity to stay with us all night, well, at least till midnight. So the movie this week is called Prospect. It's from 2018, science fiction film with Pedro Pascal, Sophie Thatcher, and Jay Duplass. The film was written and directed by Z Girl and Chris Caldwell and features a teenage girl named C and her father Damon, who land on a poisonous frozen moon to mine for valuable gems. A series of betrayals, alliances, and conflicts with mercenaries and rival prospectors make their quest increasingly perilous. Since the film premiered March 5th, 2018 at South by Southwest in Austin Film Festival, the company Gunpowder and Sky, under its science fiction-oriented label Dust, which if you go to the internet you'll find a whole bunch of these films released. This is one of them. It was originally released in Regal Cinema Theaters on November 2nd, 2018, and on video on demand and home media on March 8th, 2019. Now I'll go ahead and give you the description here. It says teenage girl, C and her father Damon, descend on a landing pod on a transport spaceship to the surface of forest moon covered in poisonous spores to mine for gems that are located within living organisms. They suffer technical malfunction during the descent, which cripples the landers and touch down some distance away from their planned prospecting site. They begin traveling to the site on foot and come across an abandoned dig site. Damon and C extract a fleshy pod from the earth and dissect it to reveal a valuable gem. She implores her father to take the gem and return to the lander, but Damon insists they continue to the original landing site. The pair set out again, and Damon is approached by two rival prospectors, Ezra and his silent companion. So Ezra and his partner plan to rob Damon and hold him at gunpoint, but Damon suggests in a counteroffer that they join forces. Damon explains it has been contacted to assist a group of mercenaries who stumbled upon the legendary Queen's Lair, a dig site of extraordinary value. Damon suggests that rather than digging for the mercenaries, Ezra, his companion, and Damon can work together and take the entire dig for themselves. Ezra agrees, but C, who has been hiding throughout this encounter, ambushes the two hostile prospectors with a rifle, allowing Damon to wrest the weapon from Ezra before taking the latter and his partner hostage. Damon attempts to rob Ezra, but the partner attacks him and the pair shoot each other. Ezra's partner is killed and Damon is mortally wounded before being killed by Ezra himself. C flees back to her damaged lander, which fails to start and is found by Ezra several hours later. When Ezra attempts to enter, C wounds him in the arm with her rifle and takes him prisoner. Ezra suggests they follow Damon's original plan and aid the mercenaries in exchange for passage on the mercenary ship. C reluctantly agrees, and the pair sets out on the Queen's Lair. Ezra's wound has become infected by poisonous spores in the atmosphere, and so the pair is approached by a group of human villagers with the intent to trade for medical treatment. The villagers instead offer the trade of gems in exchange for C. As Ezra is asked about details of the offer, C flees the village and is briefly captured by a villager, but is allowed to escape. After running for some time alone, she runs into Ezra once again. She asks him if he would have given her to the villagers in exchange for medical care, but he says no. He explains he refused to help him, so his wound has worsened considerably, and she helps him amputate his arm. The pair set out once more and soon arrive at the mercenary camp surrounding the Queen's Lair. After negotiating passage on the mercenary ship, C and Ezra attempt to fulfill their end of the contract and extract gems from the Queen's Lair. They fail several extraction attempts, and as their mercenary guard turns to report their failure, Ezra attacks and kills them. The commotion attracts the rest of the mercenaries, and a fight ensues. Several mercenaries are killed, and Ezra is gravely wounded. C tends to Ezra's wound, and the pair escape into orbit on the mercenaries' ship. The end. There you have it. And believe it or not, there's a fairly large cast. Looks like about 20 people in this film. that appear in various roles. Okay, there you have it. This film was made on a budget of about $4 million. It got an overall rating of 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's pretty good. And it's defined and enriched by its limitations. Since it's a low-budget film, if you can imagine $4 million, not a lot of money to make a movie these days, but it really, truly is amazing. So we'll be talking about that. So here's the deal. We're going to go ahead and get started. I will take your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Prospect from 2018? If you did not, that's okay. We'd just like to know if you're out there listening, and we might ask you the question, would you watch this film after our description and evaluation of the film? So let's go ahead and get started. I'll take your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Prospect from 2018. Here we go.
Yes, I saw the movie. This is in BB.
Well, at least I don't have to go first. This is Tony, November Tango 5, Tango Mike in Dallas. Yes, I saw it, with family even.
This is K9AHO, Brian and Terrell, and I haven't seen the movie, but I'll be listening with great interest. K9AHO.
NV5F, yes, I saw the movie.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, Bill in Garland. I watched the movie and I was totally lost. So I may not have a lot to say, but I'll glean a lot from tonight's discussion.
WB5OZL, name's Brenda, and yes, I saw the movie.
Okay, there's pause in the action. Let me get everybody checked in. I got N5DD Bill. Yes, he saw the film. NT5TM Tony Dallas. Yep, he saw the film. K9AHO Brian. No, he did not see the film, but he's going to listen intently and see if this is something that is his cup of tea. Next is NV5N. That's Virginia. Yes, he saw the film. W5BLT Bill. Yes, he saw the film, but yeah, there isn't a lot of dialogue and critical parts in the film, so I can imagine it being difficult to follow along. But we'll give you a yes. WB5OZL Brenda in Dallas, yes, she saw the film. Anyone else want to join us? Please come now.
This is Alpha Charlie 5, Delta Lima, Dave in Louisville. Yes, I saw the movie.
Well, look who took a nap today so he could stay up late and talk with us. AC5DL, Dave in Louisville. Yes, he saw the film, and this is twice. This is 2 weeks in a row. Excellent. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Be another opportunity. Let me look on Echolink. I don't think there's anyone there. Yeah, everybody's checked in from Echolink. So we'll start with Bill, N5BB. Bill, what did you think about the plot? That will be our first round discussing the plot of the film. So go ahead, Bill, from KE5 ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. So there's a lot of comments online that this is kind of a Western. It's like the old-timey Westerns made, well, starting about 100 years ago. And, yeah, it kind of was a Western. There were people out there on the frontier, and there were resources they were trying to get to, valuable resources, and they were fighting each other over those resources and stealing those resources, and there was no law around, so you know, you could kill somebody else and there's nobody to, you know, hold you responsible. And you also had to provide for yourself if your form of transportation failed, or you ran out of water or other resources, or you got ill and had to amputate your arm or something. So yeah, this is kind of a Western. I like this movie. I like the concept of it. There was action in the movie, but it was not a big action movie. Although there were some, quote, special effects, unquote, they weren't fancy CGI things. They were simple. So they were able to film it on something that you were supposed to assume was alien, but sure looked like the Pacific Northwest in the U.S., since it was filmed in the Washington State. And we were supposed to believe that it was a Earth-like planet with Earth-like weather or temperatures. They didn't show any rain, but temperatures were mild. We didn't really see any evidence of a lot of clouds. There appeared to be a very large I'm assuming a red giant sun that we could see setting near the end of the movie. So, what do I say about the plot? I like the plot. For a low-cost movie, it was good. They could limit the number of characters. You said there were a bunch of characters, but there were only really speaking characters that were important. There were just a handful. And, of course, the number of characters that significantly said very much were only 3. So, to remind you, the key protagonist was the young woman C, spelled C-E-E. Damon, her father, and Ezra. Initially, they're nemesis, but later C and Ezra were the ones that survived. This is kind of one of these survival through all kinds of bad things happening movies. I thought it did a pretty good job. Other things about the plot. When you looked at the rockets, they didn't look like rockets that were in the far future. In fact, the control panels looked like they were from the 1970s or 80s. They had toggle switches and other things like that. What appeared to be small CRT monitors, although it could be LCD. So there was a little bit of the rocket itself, of nearly a steampunk look to it, which is kind of interesting. The spacesuits similarly looked rather utilitarian, and it looks like they could have designed those spacesuits in the 1960s. They would have looked just fine. So that was kind of an interesting twist to it. They didn't make it seem like it was super future technology. It looked like kind of old technology. And again, the movie wasn't as much about the action. It was about what C was going through and trying to survive through the death of her father and maybe being stranded on the planet, etc. That's all I got in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. We're going to move on to Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what do you think about the plot for our film tonight, Prospect from 2018?
Yes, I will comment on the plot, although I think most of my thoughts about this movie actually belong in rounds 2 or 3. The movie was really well plotted in certain respects. It kept me paying attention. It never seemed to lag. It did not go on too long, as most Afterglow movies do. It did not waste any time in exposition of anything, really. You just kind of had to pick it up as you went along. And much of this was very visual. There was not a lot of dialogue. Traditionally, I think screenplays are supposed to take 1 page per minute, and I can only imagine what this would have looked like. An entire page with no dialogue, but just comments like, exterior, wide, things blow in front of ferns. Exterior, medium, things blow in front of ferns. Ferns blow in the wind. Exterior, close-up, moss grows on tree, fern visible in distance. Very, very visual, not a lot explained, not a lot said, really. So it kept me paying attention. The lack of exposition is certainly very modern and very efficient and tight. I'm not really sure that anything was accomplished at any point in the plot of this movie. This is not the Rebel Alliance trying to overthrow the Empire. A couple of the named characters survive, but they're all going to go through this again next movie. It's kind of just a day in the life of people with really unpleasant lives. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Next up is Brian, K9AHO. Oh, you did not see the film, so I'll skip you for now, and I'll come back to you in a little bit. Sorry about that. And we'll ask you to think this is your idea of a movie you'd like to see. So next up would be Virginia, ND5F. Virginia, what did you think about the plot for our film tonight?
Okay, thank you, Tom. I'm going to cite a lot of the same things Tony did, but I'm going to be a lot less complimentary and pleasant about them. Tony, when you said a day in the life of, when you paused, I finished the sentence, really sad people. You nailed it at the very end of your description. Nothing really gets accomplished here except a great injustice, which is that the main character ends up leaving the planet with the man who killed her father, and she's sort of, so happy, I guess, to be off the planet that she's weirdly, almost peaceful and smiley at the end, and I just can't stop thinking about the fact that she's riding shotgun with, the man who killed her father. And who knows what he's got in store or in mind. And, I just felt like there was, things were happening, and I paid attention, I think mostly hoping that the movie would actually been around to something just or interesting happening, that it did keep moving. It wasn't slow. That made it thankfully short. When they were about to do battle, or when they were doing battle with the mercenaries to get in their ship and get the heck out of there, I actually moved the mouse to see how much was left on the little progress thingy at the bottom of the screen, and I sighed a great sigh of relief that the movie was almost over. I'll get on my soapbox about exposition. I think exposition is necessary. I do not think that lack of exposition is efficient, and I don't think that it helps make things more realistic. Maybe they're more realistic, but narrative isn't realistic of a situation packaged up into a 2-hour or 1 hour and a half to 2 hour story that usually takes place over a course of hours, days, weeks, even months or years. Exposition is required to make a story that's that compact make sense. In real life, you're not thinking of your life in terms of narrative, so your scant dialogue with people that you know very well, where you can, your family or friends, and you can practically read each other's minds, and you're not trying to meet a goal that's got to be met in a story arc that's going to, change your character and your whole outlook on life. That's real in the real world, but in the movie world, it's boring and frustrating because you have to see a movie about 3 times to pick up on the details that it would help you a whole lot if you just knew them through exposition. I contend that exposition is an art form, and that the modern shunning of it is not only mannerist and elitist, it just makes movies suck. Okay, here we go. Take 2001, for instance. Everybody talks about how that movie was such a crazy, mind-blowing film, but Stanley Kubrick used really old school means of exposition. There were 2 places in the movie. He did one was a briefing when he arrived on the moon. Oh, there were 3. The next one was a briefing before they went out to see the monolith. And the third one was a big data dump in a news interview with BBC 12. Oh, there was a 4th one, the very end when Hal got disconnected and Dr. Floyd comes on a pre-recorded briefing telling Dave exactly what's going on. So you can't say that exposition is clunky or terrible or makes a movie bad, and I think this movie was totally not my cup of tea because, as Bill W5BLT said, he didn't really know what was going on, and that's because the people who think they're really awesome and smart and modern don't put exposition in movies anymore, so it's hard even for people who are fully sighted to figure out what the heck is going on. There were lots of ferns and floaty stuff in the air and really wonky, funky old school spacesuits that were kind of cool. They weren't even really pressure suits. They were more like environment suits. There were good guys and bad guys, and there just wasn't a real sort of good protagonist, antagonist arc with this girl and the bad guy who killed her dad. There was just kind of a series of events, and it didn't really lead me anywhere or make my life the least bit better for having seen it. So that's it. And there's my soapbox, my quarterly soapbox on exposition. Back to net MD5F.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. I think now, Bill, you probably know why it was hard to follow this film, but you want to go ahead and give some comments now from KE5ICX.
Well, I guess I'll give a comment. I wanted to like this movie when I read the synopsis and the plot, and it was supposed to talk about how she changed from a sort of a book reader to a survivalist, and so maybe that's why she took off with the guy that killed her dad. I don't know. That part bothered me in the movie. Kind of ruined the plot. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. And it was very hard to follow. Even having read the summary, I was lost. Because I was like, is the summary going along with the movie? I don't know. Reminded me of the time when they made me watch silent films as a blind kid in public school. And I'm sure Charlie Chaplin was pretty great, but I was totally bored. Anyway, that's all I got. W5FC.
All right, very good. No problem, Bill. I fully get it. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, Prospect from 2018?
This is WB5OZL. Well, I enjoyed the movie, although it definitely had some flaws. It was a little hard to follow, but you understood the whole point of this is people having a really bad day trying to survive. This wasn't necessarily a space movie. This could be set in the Old West or desert or any number of places, but the theme is the same. Bad stuff keeps happening to people, and they're really having to step up to even survive the day. Yeah, much less thrive. And you're really rooting for them, especially the girl. I mean, she was just having a horrible time of it, and she showed so much resourcefulness and spunk, and she just kept going rather than feeling sorry for herself. She knew what she had to do, and she did it, and I thought she was a great character. Yeah, she took off with the bad guy, but what choice did she have? She had to survive, and he was her best chance of surviving. And I think he kind of changed a little and got more sympathetic, and she began to trust him a little more. So who knows, in the future they could double cross each other, but hopefully they'll have a partnership that helps them get along and survive. I liked all of the kind of down-home things, the machinery and the costumes and everything. It wasn't at all glitzy or spacey. This is gritty, just an absolutely gritty movie. And I know it's low budget and it shows, but I think they did a lot with the budget that they had. Pedro Pascal was not such a great star at the time, so I don't know what they managed to get him for, but it's kind of different. He normally plays the hero, and maybe he just wanted a different kind of a role. And it was, a little unsettling to see him be a not so sympathetic character. But as in many of his roles, he took on an orphan kid and became the daddy figure. So it's so many movies and TV shows where he's had that theme. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
you, Brenda. Next up is Dave, AC5DL. Dave, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, Prospect from 2018?
Thank you, Tom. This is AC5DL, Dave, and greetings to all on the net tonight. What did I think about this movie? Well, you know, it did have a Western motif to it. And I got to admit that I'm a sci-fi person, and my wife is more of a country Western music type person. So when she saw the description for the movie being a Western, she asked me about that, and I said, well, I don't know, you know, I guess let's go ahead and watch. And, I mean, normally, when this time on Friday nights comes up and we watch the movie, because she's not a sci-fi person, she doesn't want to watch movies as much, but tonight she did, or last night she did, because of it being a Western. And we also in our home is our 17-year-old cat, and she often will not watch the movie. She'll cover up her head with one of her paws. But last night she didn't do that, and she saw some interest in the movie as well. The story was interestingly enough, I think, because much of it was filmed in low light and in a swampy forest, it kind of had a gloomy feel to it. Of course, there was also a lot of physical struggling and killing, but that goes along with the Western motif, I think. There wasn't a whole lot of high tech in the movie, but I'll talk about that a little bit later, I guess. I guess the majority of all the high tech was shot inside the Space Lander. But overall, I thought the movie kept interest. I thought it was curious, some of the other things about the actors that I'll probably talk about later on if we have a chance. But I'll leave it at that for now. So this is AC5DL, back to net.
Thank you, Dave, and I'm glad that worked out for Debbie, that actually engaged the movie, and that's very good to hear. Okay, we're at the bottom of the list, except for my comments. Anyone else want to check in? Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Prospect from 2018? That's optional, but if you did, we'd like to know. Any additional check-ins, please come down.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this film.
Okay, the last of the usual suspects has checked in. KD9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on the plot from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yes, the plot was pretty simple, actually. I actually didn't find it hard to follow. I do agree that typically it is better when there is more speaking and more exposition, and it usually does help most movies. This one, actually, I don't think it actually needed it, because it was such a simple plot. And just by watching it, it was pretty easy to follow. Maybe because it is a lot like a Western. I've seen a lot of films like this. The movie clearly, it was a lot like a Western, the fact that it was like the gold rush days. People were looking for, digging in random places, trying to hit it rich. essentially what this one was about, you know, a father and a daughter that were clearly down on their luck. With the mother passing away, we don't really know why, but we know that they essentially didn't have any kind of money of any kind, and this was kind of like their last hope to maybe hit it rich and be able to get back to civilization and have a better life, and that's what a lot of people did during the gold rush. And so that's kind of really what this whole thing was about. And her father is very addicted to it, like those that do the gold rush, that like to follow gold. You know, he was willing to take that risk, even though the main ship was taking off in 3 days. He was willing to go down one more time. You know, it's like that. It's almost like a gambling addiction. Just had to do it. So I think that was pretty easy to follow. Of course, it went down. They got in trouble, ran into the other folks that were doing the same. And essentially, yes, this was kind of a downer movie. There really was technically no real good guys or bad guys. Yes, the girl was probably the good guy in this, the most innocent, but yet her father was trying to steal from the other folks. So was he really a good guy? Well, he was probably better than they were, but that wasn't saying a lot probably in this situation. After all, he'd made a deal with some other people to dig where the Queen's one was at. So I wouldn't say he was necessarily a good guy. He was willing to take some pretty serious risks. So yeah, so essentially the girl was just doing what she had to do and work with somebody that was her best chance. And I do think that Pedro's character did soften up as the movie went on and did actually start to care about saving her life as well in the end. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty simple plot actually, and overall I actually kind of liked this movie. I'm surprised. I mean, yeah, it's not my favorite, but I did actually like it. I did enjoy watching it. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Back to net, KB9 SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for your comments on the first round. Okay, my thoughts on the film, I agree with most of the comments, maybe all of the comments, really, about the film. Several things about it. First off, it's world building. I always have a great appreciation for science fiction films that are successful at world building. In other words, making us believe that what we're seeing is really happening or could potentially happen. I think this movie did a great job with that. I too thought it was curious, and I guess I considered the technical aspects, but everything looked like it was from the 1970s. I think we made mention of that last night when we were watching the movie together. But it really did, what the future looks like in 1970. But at any rate, it was quite interesting. I thought that the visuals were very good. We talked about exposition. Kind of reminds me of almost a genre film noir, Blade Runner, which we frequently bring up as well. There are two versions of that film. There's one with narration and one without. Is one better than the other? Yeah, I think the one without the narration is actually a better film because you are swept up into the feeling of the film and you are left trying to figure it out. And for me, although I did see it with the narration originally, that's how the movie was released, it did take repeat viewings for me to actually get into the groove and understand that this is just a retelling of a film noir detective story, and a pretty good one at that. The thing here, and this is what diverges from Blade Runner in this case, is that the characters are not super sympathetic. Everyone in Blade Runner, for example, has their foibles, their failures, and they try to overcome them. Everyone, to a certain extent. And as such, the characters are sympathetic overall, although that isn't necessarily completely uniform throughout the film. People have been shifting loyalties and behaviors that might suggest otherwise. In this film, we don't have that so much, although C does manage to have a coming-of-age story, I guess, if you want to call it that. But none of the characters, not her father, not Ezra, and none of the what do you call them? Any of the other characters seem all that very sympathetic at all. So what do? You kind of end up with, geez, I don't know if I like these characters, but I see sort of. But then at the end, just like in another film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where you have Roy, who leaves his family and jumps on a spaceship and heads into deep space with the aliens. Well, what about your family? Do you care about them? Not really. And that was always a weird part of that film. And I kind of got that feeling at the end when they headed towards orbit. It reminded me of that scene from Close Encounters. I'm not feeling overly comfortable. Now, if you were to take and transplant this into a fully realized Western, where we're used to all of the different things, could you make it work? Maybe with an anti-hero, possibly, but I don't know. Would I appreciate a Clint Eastwood-like character doing that and getting away with it? Maybe, only because it's a Clint Eastwood movie. This is not a Clint Eastwood movie. This is a story that's working off of a plot and a very thinly constructed one. So I'm not sure I'm overly pleased with it. Now, visually, yeah, I thought the film was quite fascinating. I rather enjoyed it, and the scenic parts were very scenic, obviously, because it was Washington. But I liked the way they added things like the moons in the background and the forever fungus or spores floating in the air, and knowing that if you get out of the spacesuit, you're going to die, and that was almost fatal. Well, it was fatal for one of the people. So you keep that in mind, and that adds to the suspense, I suppose. But, yeah, there were some problems. And I think Variety mentioned... Yeah, there we go. Sorry, little server things making noises. That, you know, they loved the world building like I did, but felt that the characterization was a bit thin, and I think probably that's true. So I enjoyed the film. I watched it again. Maybe, maybe not. I might watch it again just to get the vibe for it again. I like the idea that there were long areas without dialogue. It's a little contrary to others, but I didn't mind that. I do recall that they said that this was made as a short film. I think it was 15 minutes long, and that's probably fine for one of those dust films. If you've seen them online, they usually are short subject, 15-minute, 30-minute films, tops. This was, I think, one of those, and then was extended out into a full-length motion picture. I think it was probably too long for what plot there was. So there you have it. I would give it sort of a middle of a road. I will say this, that the two people that were involved in producing this thing, I would definitely, and I will go and see what they've done since this, but I think they did a pretty good job, and I think with the proper producer and somebody out there that could assist them with character development or a good story, I think they could really do some seriously good science fiction or just plain movie work. So I didn't mind it at all. I thought for a low-budget film, this thing actually did quite remarkably well. So there you have it. Long form of a short comment. Okay, let us go up to the top. We will go ahead and continue with characterization. This one might be of some benefit with more discussion. So we'll start with Bill, N5BB. Bill, what did you think about characterization and acting in our film Prospect from 2018?
This is N5BB. Thank you, Tom. And I kind of agree with Sean, as you could probably tell from my earlier comments. And in related to characterization, kind of would be Virginia's comments about exposition, and that didn't bother me. Number one, there were several times when the people verbally spoke in ways to describe things that weren't immediately there. They were going to happen in the future, or they happened in the past, and you have to listen. I mean, it wasn't every scene, but it was at certain critical points. So the father spoke to his daughter C early in the movie about where they had come from, and that was where their mother had been. The daughter had a picture of her mother. He saw her, and that was kind of interesting. She had a physical photograph in the future. And there was, the father had talked to her about the situation. So we kind of learned that by the father Damon describing these things out loud, exposition. Later in the movie, there were a couple times when C and Ezra were talking, and they kind of negotiated some things. They talked about things and alternatives. So those were explicitly kind of done in exposition that way. So, but because of the nature of a lot of the movie, it was kind of out there with the elements. It wasn't like an urban setting, so there wasn't a lot of, interaction with other people. And some of the other people were bad people, so it's kind of yelling to them, we're going to kill you if you don't do something. Kind of like in a Western. And we heard those things. And we learned why the guy was out there in that little cage. Well, we didn't learn the details, but we learned basically that somebody had left him there to be punished for some unknown thing. Anyway, as far as the characterization goes, I think this movie, one reason I enjoyed it was because it showed the characters developing. So we saw C early in the movie. This is inside BB, isn't it? This is the Afterglow net. Early in the movie, C kind of wants to be to herself. She kind of wanted to look where she was writing those weird characters and thinking, and she put her headphones on, listened to her music. She kind of wanted to be in her own little world and not worry about these bad things that were going on. This is early in the movie, when her dad was still alive and things weren't too bad. Later in the movie, as she had to survive and come up with some plans for how she would get out of there, who she would trust, who she would not, she made some very adult decisions. And, this decision to, I think some of these were explicitly described visually. Now, I'm sorry, Bill, you couldn't see these things. But I think one of the key things in the movie is when Ezra, the prospector that actually shot and killed C's father, he had an old filter cylinder. And so they connected his suit to C's suit, which had good equipment, via this long hose. And so what do you see? You see them traipsing around together, tied by this hose. This was for most of the movie. And, this was a visual thing, just showing how they were linked, and it kind of related back to the plot and to the characterization of them becoming linked because of their circumstances. So, I'm sorry you couldn't see that, Bill, but to me that was a really key thing they did. If they had not been linked with that hose, I think the movie would have been harder to to understand the relationships and everything. That's my feeling about it. I think that Ezra, because of this, also changed quite a bit. During the movie, he changed to really helping see, and near the end, at a critical point, he suggested she go back and leave him, which she did not, but that's what he suggested. So I think, as Tom has mentioned before, you want to see a big change in the characters. You want to see them improving their moral position, you might say. And I saw that, both with C, she was originally kind of, I don't care about any of this stuff, to a very, she was worrying about what was happening with her, the people around her. And the same thing with Ezra, who was, working on thinking about C also. So, anyway, there's a lot of characterization in what I've said, I think, and I hope that matters. Because there was a change in their characterization during the movie. And all the other characters were essentially bad guys and just treated just like the bad guys in the westerns. They get shot, they're bad, they do bad things, they mistreat people. One woman, she would play this incredibly loud music. I guess that was just to disable people. I don't know. I'm really surprised that they didn't have a better way of disabling that, or the suits themselves keeping them from being deafened by that really loud, annoying music. Anyway, that's what I got about characterization. And again, I like the movie, N5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. And thanks for those comments. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough. You make some really good points. All right, next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, I know you're itching to talk about characterization, so go ahead from KE5ICX.
I'm sad to say I don't think I have a good collection of good points to make for this round. I generally classified the characters in this movie as sort of mildly dynamic. They weren't completely static, at least though, named ones we followed throughout most of the movie, like C. But we didn't get a very explicit, nice, obvious, easy something to see, like in, say, Planet of the Apes. Help the humans about to escape. We didn't get something that was very clear. We didn't get something that was very sharp. It was very slow. It was very gentle. It was, kind of more natural. So I'll call them mildly dynamic characters, at least the, main ones the movie followed. Yes, as Bill said, there were to doing bad things for bad reasons, and, okay, I guess. But, I think I'll save most of my positive comments for round 3, NT5TM.
Okay, Tony. All right. Next up, let me call on Brian now, K9AHO. I know you haven't seen the film. Now you've heard some comments. What do you think? Is this a hit or a miss? Something you want to see, or skip? From KE5ICX.
This is K9AHO. Well, I want to thank you all very much for the fantastic thoughts and impressions of the movie. While I was listening to you talk, I was Googling it, watching the trailer, and I thought the visuals were pretty interesting. I could definitely tell that it was low budget. One of the things that really captured my imagination was you're talking about it having a sparse exposition, and as soon as you mentioned that, it reminded me of the movie Solaris, and the director there, purposefully tried to set the mood through, lighting in particular, but music. I was struck by the soundtrack by Cliff Martinez, so much so that I bought the soundtrack. So I was curious, did the directors do a pretty good job of dealing with the lack of exposition through at least some good music? K9AHO.
All right, well, thank you. I've wanted to do that film, but it is so long, the 1968 version. I guess they did one in 2002, but oh well, who knows? Maybe one day. Just can't imagine. But it's been done and redone on occasion. I think there have been some variations of it too. Okay, well, very good. Thanks for your comments. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX.
Okay, characters. Well, the characters, the dad and the daughter, were promising at first. I think they were kind of a stereotype that could be done in probably just about any genre. It's a common story to have a deceased mother, a dad who's kind of lost his moral compass and is trying to raise a child, and they end up kind of just sort of itinerant and not really with any sort of direction, and everything is kind of fly by night for them. So that's the story itself is something that it's kind of like that story just in space, in I guess some distant future where we've gone to a far, maybe another star system, and it's a frontier where there's prospectors and they've got all the kludgy, janky old technology that's kind of like rejected by the mainstream people, maybe back in the solar system or in the richer part of the settlements or colonies or whatever. So that's kind of the movie itself. It's one of those movies where you go, well, this didn't necessarily need to take place in space, but that's just kind of where they put it. As an aside, I did like this is more of a round 3 thing, I guess, but I did like the opening shot of the big gas giant looking planet and the moon, and at first I thought they were near Jupiter or Saturn or something, but turns out it was some completely odd place. The forest made of Endor is what I called it, which is where they had gone to find these jewels that are obvious. There's some kind of a seed or something that these plants make in their roots or whatever. But yeah, the characters were pretty typical but interesting, and you had the little bit of opening conversation where the dad is expressing, his love for his daughter, remembering when she was born and talking about her mom and all that, and there's a little bit of that closeness there that makes you, of course, then sad when he gets killed, because that even though he's maybe not the greatest dad and doesn't have the greatest priorities, he's doing what he can, and he and his daughter are doing what they can to stay alive, and she's trying to help them, and she loves him, and I liked the actors in this. The acting was all really good overall. I never got, just exasperated with crappy acting. The acting overall was kind of pretty good. I wish there had been more of some kind of a real arc or plot, thread that I thought was a real story that was going somewhere so that I could like these people more or care about their goals a little bit more. It did bother me. I just hate injustice, so the whole thing of her, and that's kind of a story too that you see a lot of where a character's, she was sort of holding him hostage, but essentially he was psychologically holding her hostage, even though she, had the weapon and she was going to bring justice for him killing her dad and, make sure he helped her get off the planet and, but really he was kind of in charge, and then the incident happened where they had to be linked by his filtration system for his suit broke, and she had to link him to hers, and like Bill said, that was kind of an obvious symbol, and they didn't mention it, but like I said before, the dialogue in this is so incidental sounding that that even someone who saw what was going on might not understand why, because everything is so fleeting in why it's mentioned, assuming that everyone watching is, kind of has context. Like, if you were there and you were one of the people in this world, you would have context, and everything people said would make sense, and give you a little more, you just know more what was going on. I did, to respond a little bit for that, I did think the world building in this was good. They built a world convincingly in just a few minutes, and you can kind of, even if it's your own version, even if you're kind of explaining it to yourself, you can kind of, have some kind of explanation as to, what I said. There are these prospectors, people, in a frontier, and maybe it's a couple stars away or whatever, and it's kind of, doesn't matter that much that they're in space. It's just kind of a different setting for sort of an old story. I did get a little nervous when they were in when they had found the village of people, and they wanted to trade their resources for the girl. I thought I was just going to go in a direction that was going to make me uncomfortable, but that didn't really happen, fortunately. In fact, I was kind of worried about that all the way through this movie, but they kept it tasteful, fortunately. And, they had she had to help him, amputate his arm, and, they did a lot of the normal character building, kind of building the link between the characters, but I was just too disturbed by the fact that, she had lost her dad. And when she was alone in the spaceship after she got away and was, trying to figure out what to do after the spaceship didn't launch, I liked her. I liked, those moments of, her kind of just being a teenager, and, there's definitely a little arc where she goes from being, she's hanging on to as much of her innocence as she can. She's a fan of this book, and she lives in this sort of fantasy world, and she's actually having to rewrite the text of the book herself because she doesn't have a copy of it anymore. And that reminds me of something I would have probably done when I was a kid. I would go see a movie, and I couldn't go back and see it whenever I wanted, so I would just lay in bed at night when I was trying to fall asleep, and I would try to replay the movie scene by scene in my head so that I could remember it, until I got to see it again. So, I identified with her as a character, and I liked her, and I wanted her to just win a little bit more than she got to here, and the other bad characters were kind of your typical, seedy characters in this whole subculture, and, these kind of subcultures exist here on Earth in real life, and there are people who are tough and strong and live that lifestyle and don't know anything else, and that's kind of how I felt about these people. This was sort of normal life for them, and the acting was very good. I just wish it had a little more of a identifiable connection that I could make as a viewer, but that's all subjective. So anyway, I liked the dad too. I'm sorry he got killed, and just kind of a sad story, and kind of with not even a poignant ending, just kind of. So anyway, back to that NG5F.
right, thank you, Virginia. And next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, any comments from KE5ICX?
Well, I will say that thanks to the Afterglow movie net, I feel differently about the characters now. Up until this point, my favorite characters were the spores that were floating in the air. So I feel differently now. Maybe the, I don't know. I didn't really feel anything for the characters, and maybe that is because I couldn't see what was happening on the film, and 2/3 to 70% of communication is nonverbal. And so when the verbal is lacking, I probably lacked some empathy for the characters, and I was just happy the movie was over. And I know that's probably different than the rest on the net. I'm not sure that I will. Sometimes I'll go back and watch a movie after we review it here because the gaps are filled in. But I don't know that I will go back and watch that. I will eagerly await next week's movie. W5BLT, back to you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Bill. And yeah, I understand. And this you know, when we pick the movies, it's sort of like a quick cursory evaluation of the film. I mean, it's really quick, and yes, I typically pick the films unless I hear otherwise, although I've got an offer in on one called Doing Time on Earth today, so I'm going to look into that, see if that's available and what it's like and all that, and see if we put it in the queue. But yeah, some films are really tough when they're exposition light, and that makes it particularly difficult for you to follow along. And my apologies to that, because a lot of times I'm not sure what we're getting into when we do go with a particular movie. Okay, next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on characterization acting from KE5ICX. WB50ZL, are you there, Brenda, or did you doze off?
This is WB50ZL. I actually had dozed off. What are we talking about now?
Oh, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know whether we're discussing characters or special effects, so because I dozed off, so I'm behind.
So we're doing characterization right now, and then we'll go for a free-for-all on third round.
Okay, well, I thought the girl did a fantastic job of acting. That was a pretty tall order for a young girl like that. She played it very naturally, I thought. And Pedro Pascal was just so slimy and icky in this, and which I guess made it believable. This, I sure would not want to live there. There's so many horrible people around, and you're just about to meet your end at any minute or have people steal from you. And kill you, and it was just not a real fun place to be at all. I hope the day comes that we populate outer space, that the people are a lot nicer than these people are. All right, I'm going to cut it there because it's getting kind of late. So back to net, WB5OZL.
Okie dokie. Next up, Dave, AC5TL. Dave, your thoughts on characterization?
Okay, Tom. When I went through the list of characters here, I wrote down some notes, and I know, like Brenda says, we probably ought to be moving on. Let me start with C. Really creative name. Made me wonder if she had siblings named B or C++, but, in reality, she really did have an anchor in this in terms of characterization. She started out portraying an innocent teenager, just sitting there listening to her rock music, but later on really became the person that more or less saved everyone, saved herself and Ezra, getting themselves off the planet successfully. And speaking of Ezra, man, what a character for pins and needles. He's really the victim of physical abuse in the movie. He gets shot, has an arm amputated, and gets stabbed before finally escaping the planet in the mercenary spaceship, so good for him. No telling how he ends up surviving. Hopefully he does. Then there's, there were some villagers here then, and the first thing I thought was, they look like sand people from Star Wars. Moving on, the prisoner. He reminded me of a WWE wrestler with pink makeup all over him. And to top it off, he showcased and lit up in a plexiglass phone booth. But, you had to really read the fandom site to find out what his real role is, but I'll move on. And then the other one, the one that got me, I think it was Bill that was mentioning this earlier, is the character Inyaman. This is a mercenary female character who has an annoying habit of patching in loud rock music into everyone's comm system, seemingly just to get their attention. She just turns it on. It's kind of like Marty McFly in Back to the Future imitating Darth Vader and playing loud music with his tape player. So anyhow, that's what I thought about actors and characterization. Back to Ned.
Oh, leave it to you to come up with interesting notes, especially regarding characterization. Okay, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, characterization, acting. You're up.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, I agree with everybody said on the characters. They're obviously, I think, Billy hit it on the head there. Obviously the girl was clearly the star of the show, had the biggest growth with, obviously still, having that innocence at the beginning, and then obviously where he had to fight for survival and kind of had to make some very grown-up decisions. And I thought she acted it very well. All the actors in this actually were pretty good, so got no complaints there. I think the father did good for the short amount of time he was there. Pascal did good as the quote bad guy, maybe turned good guy in the end, and then maybe the small group of kind of like tribal people that live there locally were almost a throwaway, but they kind of needed that just for the girl and the guy to bond more over that situation. Then of course our bad guys at the end, pretty straightforward. I know a few comments obviously been made about the blasting of the music, but it's kind of an interesting way, because she was just blasting the music at the girl and the guy, just, because if you noticed, she was able to talk to her crew, and it was just the other two that were getting the annoying noise. Kind of a little bit like when you have game shows and they put the headphones on the people, they don't want to hear what's going on. So that's kind of an interesting twist. Yeah, not a lot to add here. Overall, thought the movie was all right. Enjoyed it. Since we're about out of time here, I'll just say I did enjoy the effects. For such a low-budget movie, I thought they did well, and I liked the aesthetic. And I would like to thank whoever designed the pod, that went down to the planet. Thank you for not making the thing the size of a house. It was actually small and tiny, like it should be. That's all I got. Looking forward to the next one. Back to that. KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. While people were talking, I think I had kind of an epiphany. I was trying to figure out why I had a love-hate relationship with this film, and it dawned on me, we talked about the Western motif, but I have two very specific Westerns. I'm going to put them in quotes, because they're not, neither of them is traditional. One is called The Mission, from, I think, 1987. The other is Black Robe from 81, I think. One's 86, the other one, I looked it up here. Both films, they involve missionaries and Jesuit priests, and that's going into the North America. Well, one is into the Amazons in the 17th century, and the other is in Canada in the 18th century. And it has to do with meeting with natives. And you don't know what they're thinking. You're not sure what to expect. And you don't know what's going to happen next. And the characters are reacting to their environment. They don't always say a lot, because to say something would mean that they give away whatever feelings they have that could be sensed by the natives, and then that could be used to their detriment. So they hold a lot of the emotion in while attempting to move forward. And yes, the characters do develop in both movies. And so the lack of dialogue was forced because they couldn't reveal their true selves, which could be construed as weakness. And I think this is part of what this film is doing to a certain extent, is that it wants to be showing the ruthlessness of the people without making them into the overt bad guys, but also, like we have the townspeople, and they go in and see the townspeople, and we play it cool because we're not entirely sure what all is going on, and Ezra knows the story, but even he miscalculates, and that's kind of what we see also in The Mission in Black Robe. So maybe that's what they were hitting on. I'm not sure. But at any rate, that came to mind, and I think that's what I'll say about characterization on this round. Okay, well, again, we're reaching the bewitching hour. I'm going to go ahead, and for the third round, if you would like to talk about anything, music, special effects, or something we haven't covered yet, I'll take your call sign now and take you in the order that I get them, and we'll finish it off tonight. So if you have something else to say on the film, please come with your call now.
AC5DL.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NV5F.
Okay, we got three, AC5DL, NT5TM, and NV5F. I'll ask again after those three. So we'll start with Dave, AC5DL. Go ahead.
Okay, AC5DL here. Just wanted to talk quickly about some weird stuff I thought that was in the movie. Just the fact that C's headphones had slots where you could put cylindrical storage cartridges. I thought that was kind of interesting. military hand crank generators used to charge rail guns. That's a new one. You know, I was in the military. I never saw that. A weird music device that sounds like a harmonica but seems to be powered by a field generator unless it's like one of those things in a jack-in-the-box. The aurelic root pearls themselves. I mean, organisms that live under the ground and kind of have human-looking organs and something like an ovary where these root pearls are grown. I thought that was definitely weird. But, you know, in the end, the aurelic plant pearls were the root cause of all the human suffering and death in the movie. And I just thought, you know, where else can you find a science fiction movie that has musical instruments and railguns powered by military field generators, has underground organisms that grow pearls, and has a pink-colored WWE wrestler as a prisoner on display in a plexiglass booth? So anyhow, those were some of the things I thought that were interesting. I will note, you know, if you go to the fandom website, you can find that somewhere out there you can get Star Trek-style trading cards based on this movie. I went to eBay and did not find any, but I'll definitely keep looking for them. And there's also an aurelic prospecting guide, your guide to getting rich on the green moon. And I sent that also, I put that on our website, so you can contact Tom, WB5ICX, and he can get you one. So anyhow, this is AC5DL, back to net.
TM, your comment.
Elvis has left the building.
Okay, well, I will be mindful of timeouts. First off, for all of us here in Texas, I'd urge you to go outside. There is a beautiful first quarter moonset going on right now, very coppery. The bird has gone to bed, but I just took the dog out for her bedtime walk. And oh, what a beautiful moonset. Just so wonderful. And that actually ties into what I liked most about this movie. The characters were interesting, and yes, the acting was great, but there was no, you know, wonderful dynamic character. There was no wonderful accomplishment from the plot. But, oh, the production design did so well. It just so happened, because Aaron's mom was visiting, that we watched Moontrap one night, and then she asked, oh, is there another movie, preferably better than this? And I said, yes, I just got an announcement of next week's movie. So we watched this one. Moontrap. Terrible costumes. Spacesuits that looked like they were quilted by somebody's great aunt. Oh, and then we watched this, with the appropriately kludgy spacecraft and the, I guess, I don't know what to call them, biohazard isolation garments that look like they were made by poor, hungry prospectors with some pieces of plexiglass. Yeah, I really thought the production design of this low-budget movie suited it extremely well. It was so fitting, it kept me in the movie. My favorite part of the movie was just how all the props and costumes fit together very well. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. I think I read somewhere on the wiki that they mentioned they had 7 or 8 months they spent dedicated just doing costumes and props, which very rarely happens in any motion picture. Maybe that's why it works so well. Next up, ND5F. Virginia, your final comments.
Well, they were probably waiting for their Kickstarter funding to come in, so they figured they might as well spend the time working on costumes and props. Which I did like the overall, there was a certain overall feel to this that worked, and the effects were pretty good, convincing. They were just gritty enough to not look too finished or fake. I'm sure there was a lot of CG involved in like the outer space, the ships and stuff, but they really made that look like it was genuinely filmed. It looked like, well, this is what it would look like if I was really in one of these kludgy spaceships. And I liked the oldness of the spaceships and the whole. And boy, Dave talked about all the weird, little gadgetry and the headphones and the railgun and the weird, harmonica thing that was kind of like a hurdy-gurdy or whatever. And I liked the production values. It had good editing. It had good overall, shot composition. I don't like this new way. Everybody's just, we've got a cool camera package, and they don't seem to know how to get any kind of depth out of their equipment. They just film this flat, low contrast, really murky. They color cast everything. I was complaining about that last night. I don't like it. It's just kind of this nauseous green color, all the time. And it would be so much better if they got any contrast out of it, if they shot like, someone who was a photographer instead of someone who just, knew how to run a video camera and, I guess I watched a few YouTube videos on making films. I don't know. There's so much more visually they could have gotten out of something that had a lot of promise. The little spores that were floating in the atmosphere looked kind of ethereal and otherworldly and gave the world a little bit of an enchanting feel, and it was kind of in direct opposition to the overall, mood of these people and the situation. So yeah, I struggled with the high production values versus the, just not knowing how to get the most out of the, what your equipment could really do visually. And maybe the modern equipment you just put it on auto. I don't know. I just don't feel like it has any filmic, contrast or depth to it that it could have. It makes everything feel kind of jaundiced and just kind of, kind of tired and weary and dreary. And I get tired of that look. It's okay if the look serves the story, and this look, I guess, kind of serves the story, but when everything looks like this, after the year 2015, you're just going, okay, I've had enough of this. So those are my main points. The music was unrememberable because I don't remember it. Dave, I very much enjoyed your character rundown. I think you did one of those last week, and that's hilarious. Get on this net every week just for that, because that was fantastic. Let's see, what else do I have here? I wrote another note. Oh, the mean lady with the music, another 2001. She reminded me of an angry monolith with really bad music, hurting everyone's ears. And then there's a couple of personal notes. I wanted to see if Brian is still around, if he wanted the link for the 2001 podcast website. It's a very simple link. It's just spaceodyssey.com. Just spell space odyssey as one word, and just like Odyssey with a P. And Bill, W5BLT, I was wondering if I could get maybe a contact or an email or something for you. There's just thoughts I have about these movies versus your visual disability, which I understand a little bit, but totally don't really. But I know enough to maybe be able to discuss some of these with you. Anyway, I wanted to see if I could get a contact for you if you're still around. Okay, that's it for me. Back to it, NV5F.
All right, well, very good. Virginia, thanks for reaching out to Bill. I'll let you guys do that at the conclusion of the nap, which is about 30 seconds. Okay, I don't have any additional comments. I made my finals on the last round. I did find, and I occasionally go out looking for new films or old films, and I found a really good copy of Rocket Ship XM that was posted legally, by the way, on YouTube for next week. It's a HD print, so it's got great restored color. So this one will be probably fun to watch. Rocket Ship XM with Lloyd Bridges. So that will be next week, and we'll see you all then. So I'm going to say good night, everybody. I'm going to bed. See you all next week. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
W5FC.
Hi, Virginia. This is K9AHL. You said you had a link available?
Yeah, the link is just spacepodyssey.com. So SpacePodyssey.com, and that'll get you to the 2001 A Space Odyssey page, and they have links to the podcast. You can also get their podcasts on most of the podcast outlets.